So I'm on the forums for Adobe for a Creative Cloud developer, and I just put in a question. I'm making a Photoshop plugin, and I had a question about how to do something. So I came in here, I wrote my question, and I said, oh, you know what? It would be nice to get notifications. I probably have notifications turned off, browser notifications, or that gives you a little pop-up. And so I'm like, why don't I come into my preferences and turn them on? So then I came down over here. I scrolled down to live notifications. Let me zoom in here a little bit. And I can see this right here. And for a few seconds, this was confusing to me. And it's confusing because it's designed poorly. And so I want to describe to you why it's designed poorly and what they should do to fix it. So we've got a button here. And the confusing thing about this is that we're getting conflicting signals about the system state. And right here, we've got this button. And the question is this button indicating a system status, the state of a system, or is it communicating an action for us to change that? Now, it's doing both right here, but it's giving conflicting signals, because if you just take the text, it says, disable notifications. So if we hid this icon right here, we say disable notifications, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, if I click that, I disable them. So I can infer from that they're on, right? But notice I have to do a little bit of mental work, right? By being like, okay, this is telling me an action that is that you're going to disable. And so then I have to sort of infer back from that, just be like the system state, namely that they are currently enabled. Okay, that's the first piece of information we get from this button. The second one is this icon right here, where we have a bell crossed out. Now, often icons will indicate system state. So this is a little bit ambiguous, because if this indicated, pretend you didn't have these words, right? Let's just open up our console and get rid of these words right here. Boop. So then we just have this, right? And this looks like the notifications are off. And this is a good test to do. If you've got some UX component, some buttons or whatever, right? And you'd be like, okay, let's just break it down to its individual parts. And you can do this with a design too, to check your hierarchy. You'd be like, okay, just take these all away. And what is this communicating by itself? Okay. And what this is communicating by itself is that the system is off, right? No bells right here. But that's not what it should be communicating, right? It should be communicating that something is currently on. Okay, so how should this have been done better? Well, we get another example right on this page. Checkboxes are a great example of things that clearly communicate system state. So I look down here. These words could be gibberish, right? Let's come in here and just, let's change this to some garbage, right? Okay, where is this? Enable, boom. Okay, that's beautiful. And let's do over here, let's put in some more garbage. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now we don't have any text to communicate anything to us, actions or system state, but we actually know without any sort of contentful information, the state of the system is off and is on. And we don't even need any words, right? So checkboxes are great because through the color and the check, it communicates off and on. And this is a convention that we've had for a very long time. It's a very useful convention to have checkboxes, right? Empty or off and filled on. Another good example is switches. Switch UI, right? And so we get these, right? And sometimes you have them with text. Sometimes you don't. You don't even need text, right? Because you've got color and you've got left, right in Western reading schemes, right? So you have on and then off. And switches are another great thing because with both switches and text box, you can do both things That is, and it's much more efficient that way to be able to communicate system state and an action. But you can do it clearly, right? And so instead, this live notification could have been a switch or it could have been a checkbox. So then we come to another design question, a fascinating design question. Should it be a checkbox or should it be a switch? Well, we already see here that we are normally communicating on-off with a checkbox. So one of the things that I've talked about before is that in design, whether you're talking about like UI UX or just normal design, people typically will designers will typically overvalue novelty and undervalue consistency. And they undervalue it because most people want consistency. They don't care about novelty. When you're talking about usability, most times, like when you're doing something that's either doing something or communicating information, right? So if something is purely decorative, that's a different matter. But if something is communicating like where something is, contact information, like on a page, the name of a company, buttons to add or subtract something, stuff like that, then you typically want consistency. So here we should have just used a checkbox because the idea of good UX is that we're reducing cognitive load. And if we see that this is normally communicated on-off through checkboxes, that means every time we see that, we subconsciously start developing this language for this website, right? And so we say like, okay, so like normally this is how they communicate system state by checkboxes, right? So if you had a switch, the problem with using a switch in this case would be that you're essentially denoting the same function that is on off, but there's a different UI for this, which is implicitly communicating that there is something different about this system state, this on and off, than those other ones, and it creates some cognitive dissonance. And so the user is going to say, okay, wait a second, why is this? Now, this is not explicit, right? They're just going to feel this. They're just going to feel this and be like, oh, this is something different. What's different about it, right? And so they're going to go about it, but nothing is different, right? You're just indicating system state. So like what's a situation where you might want to use a switch? Well, there's sometimes maybe you want to have, and this is more complicated and there's probably better ways to do this, but if you have a switch that doesn't indicate on or off, but you have a sort of like, it's kind of like a radio one where you have two system states that do different things and it's not on and off. And so you don't do the colored like green on one side and gray on the others, but you could have two different colors. You could have text on each side to say, oh, this one is for like, notifications once a week or notifications once a month or something like that. So it's not a binary on off thing. It's two different system states. Okay, let me know if y'all have any thoughts about it, and I'll see you in the next video.